Hello everyone, this is QuantumSink. Today I'm going to be speaking to you as two different people because that's the best way to really understand this. Because also, that's kind of the whole point. I mean, two different diagrams and two different people. Because this is meant to be read by a human being. This is meant to be read by a human being who knows how to program a database. So let's start talking like a human being first so that we can really understand what's going on. Again, this is the same kind of diagram from last time. I made a small adjustments, especially to a couple names and some attributes, but the main thing that you want to get across here is that this is just meant to be readable. And if you can read it, fantastic. So let's start trying to understand. So, as I said before, there really isn't a starting point, but if you really want to pick one out, I can probably say that most things will stem off from the patient. The patient will have a submission that they want to put in to see, okay, do I have COVID-19? Is that a thing I have? That's really all I want to know as a patient. So ultimately, I'll be telling you through the app, hey, okay, this is your information. And based on that, I can find your occupation, see what the risk goes from there, what that puts on your behavior, and your behavior also, again, pushes some sort of risk. And you, in general, due to your, if you have like a pre-existing condition, will also push towards a risk. Or if you live in a certain area and that place is bloated with, coronavirus, that also obviously has a risk. And so these things will ultimately end up determining how much risk you have involved, and that's the ultimate goal here at the end of the day. You also will have to factor in, okay, well, I have access to X hospital, depending on your location. Uh, you know, Many things will factor into other things, and you have to take each piece and just kind of assess different points of information and say, okay, well, does that affect you as the patient? That's the basic gist. And if you want to really kind of understand this as a whole from a management kind of point, because I'm just trying to talk to a human being, and that's the most I can really ask for. So that's just what you're trying to get at with a conceptual entity relationship diagram, and that's essentially what you have here. It's where you want to start, and once you know where to start, you can make a physical diagram. And once again, I'll start zooming in so you can kind of get an idea what this will look like. It's a lot less visually structured, I'd say, but I think it gets things across quite well. And plus, I don't really like all the circles going around. This is so much easier for me to read. Again, as a aspiring data scientist, this is probably more readable to me than most. But as a programmer, you have to understand that each entity will have that primary key, again, that unique identifier that you want to find, and you want to relate it into other things. Um, I took some things into account with this one specifically, and I wanted to add a couple more foreign keys for specifically for risk factor into both the patient and also behavior, because I think you have certain behaviors that will have a risk level, and I think the risk factor in general will ultimately come back into your patient, because that's what you want to assess at the end of the day. If you're making an app to assess the risk of coronavirus, you're going to have to take a look at that patient's total risk, and that'll be it. A big change from the last relationship diagram I did last time was that I wanted to also, instead of putting patient, I also wanted to specify specifically that this is a patient submission. They want to know what their level is. And so you have right here is just the submission ID instead of putting the patient ID, because you don't want to put strictly classified information. You don't want to find their name, and that's the end of the day for that. You just want to keep things safe. That's all you can ask.